afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another Propagandacast Addendum with me, your host, Imperial Dane, master of adding in extra little videos here and there. Today we're looking at something, a slight smaller series I might be running, which is called Things I'd Like to See in Company of Heroes One Day. Which will basically cover sort of, things I would like to see, obviously I know they're probably never going to happen in Companies 2, though there's always the dream, but overall, say in a future Company Heroes 3, stuff and features I would like to see. And in this case, I'm going to focus on something I've actually been wanting for ages. I mean, really, ages. It actually sort of starts back in Dawn of War 1 is one of the things I rather liked about it. It was the squad leaders, the NCOs, if you will. That is, it's not just rank and file, soldiers, but there's actually someone in command of them. It's, one of those things, that tends to sort of get lost. I mean, in most RTS games, the infantry is, the usually unsung heroes. In fact, they're completely and utterly ignored and just sort of rendered into cannon fodder when reality is not quite that straightforward. And of course, if you then sort of take it even further, of the infantry, then the NCOs tend to be the even more unsung heroes, if you sort of go at it like that. And again, Dawn of War sort of run things against, rather try to reflect that slightly ignored human element. And then, of course, we had Company Heroes 1, which somewhat reflected it. They were sort of more organically a part of the squad, whereas in Dawn of War, they were an upgrade, but in Company Heroes 1, you had chaps with slightly different weapons than the rest, clearly sort of look to stand apart. There's leaders, Volksgrenadiers with a slightly better single-shot Sturmgewehr, Grenadiers, Fallschirmjägers, Luftwaffe ground troops, and Stormtroopers, and they all had that bit that just performed a bit better. It was sort of more a visual flair there, but still had an effect that probably allowed them to sort of fine-tune the squads a bit better and sort of sort out the weapon profiles. For example, the Riflemen, 6-man, but they had one with a carbine, which is slightly better up close, but rather rubbish at range, and so on there. It was a very nice touch. Again, it sort of made it feel more human like actual infantry, which again sort of tends to get a bit ignored. And you of course might be knowing then where this leads to, because in Companies 2, much to my surprise, there was absolutely nothing there. It's just sort of all rank and file, all the same privates or Obersoldaten, but no squad leaders, no, chaps that stand out, nothing leads. Then again, in a game that always sort of, I think, pushed many interesting elements, smoke, true sight, and so on there, I felt, the squad leaders was a huge miss by Relic. Really, it's one thing I really, really would have liked if they sort of done something with. And again, you might ask yourself, well, how? We have two routes here. We have the Dawn of War method, or we have the Company's method. Either there's sort of organic part of it, or there's sort of an added upgrade. The added upgrade one is sort of the straight one. You get an additional member, toughens up the squad further, and sort of adds some extra, firepower. A bit, like a bolster section, except it's sort of more individual level, and we could imagine it sort of takes up a weapon slot if sort of were to use in Company's 2 terms. That is, you upgrade your Volksgrenadiers, they become 6-man, but it's going to be an expensive upgrade for starters. It's not going to be cheap, that's for sure. And again, it means they can't be upgraded really with much else, but again, it might give them then some abilities besides just that extra fellow, or it might at least lock out some weapons. So that could be a Riflemen could become 6-men, Conscripts would be 7, and so on. The re-echelons would then become 5, later 6. Grenadiers become 5. And again, that essentially, it would certainly strengthen the Allies in one way, to the Germans in others. For example, for the Wehrmacht, it would sort of help with the issue. Again, they suffer from very easy wipes. In that sense, just having a squad leader where you boost them in that way. And then you can sort of just further sort of, check out the profiles in terms of weapons. So on there's a big hump to overpower. But again, also cost. They should usually, cost quite a bit, but then also boost the performance. You can then have, provide experience bonuses to the squad, further, for example, helping, you have to sort of replace units late in the game. Squad leaders that way could sort of ensure you don't fall too far behind on, for example, experience, and ensure they don't just become, easy targets. And again, you could sort of all the way to boost them later game. For example, the Russians say the squad leader there is unlocked with a mechanized armor company. Boof, right there, say adding in the submachine guns, they'd be even tougher. And again, could have slightly different weapons again. So it's squad leaders, submachine guns, Germans, can't take K single shot, for example, and so on there. That way you could, further check things out. For the Panzer Grenadiers, no idea, but you could unlock, smoke grenades or something, for example. So in that way, it could add a bit more. Again, if it's sort of the more organic one, it'd just be, part of it already. And again, that way, you could sort of use slightly tweak things further. For example, the Riflemen could have a Thompson there for up close quarters action, slightly lowering their firepower at range, meaning, German infantry would have a bit better advantage there, further sort of emphasizing American close quarters play. Same with the Soviets, for example. So that could be, one way of doing it as well. And they could even, then veterans is also switching out the weapons doing away. So I mean, again, that would be another way to just sort of further augment their squad's sort of, abilities, firepower, sort of the ranges they sort of want to fight in effectively. Of course, that the issue then of sort of how did they then die. I mean, obviously, the sort of more organic one, you could sort of have them be the last one to die, a bit like, how Relic has done it with the flamethrower. I mean, the flamethrower guy is always the last one to die, despite, walking around with a huge fuel tank on his back. So, I mean, that could be an option there as well to sort of consider. Again, I know it's nothing, deeply serious, but, it's just one of those things I rather always feel, is deep and personal to me. Not personal, but, really interesting. Because the one thing, always, when you read all these World War II books and so on there, what rather stands apart as important is also the NCOs. It's not just the weapons or the training. It's just as much the NCOs, the corporals, the sergeants. I mean, they're really, the glue that ties it all together to a large part. In particular in the German army, they were important, but also the British and so on there. So in that sense, I do feel it's an element that Relic could have highlighted, could have done more with, Company of Heroes. And in that sense, the squad leaders tend to be the ones that rather do the most heroics. So in that sense, again, that could have been interesting. And they could even further, just slightly have the squad leaders stand out visually with a slightly different uniform, which again would also then break them up visually, making perhaps the squads a bit more varied and, visually interesting, which is in particular what the Wehrmacht Grenadiers need, because quite frankly, they still look awful. But again, this is just how to implement in Companies 2. I mean, in Companies 3, who knows what happens there, but then they could even add further flair. I mean, that way, try and, have the veterans be centered around the squad leader, how he, directs the rest of the squad, his experiences become better. A sort of, I suppose, slightly Warcrafty system, but stay, a bit Panzer lead as well. But it could be some different abilities. Maybe the squad leader is, rather efficient and tank hunting, as an example, has bonuses towards there. Perhaps picks up an extra weapon somewhere around the range, close quarters action. The German grenadier might, pick up some PPH-41s, rather potent submachine guns. Could be camouflage uniforms in case of, say, regular grenadiers who we assume don't start with it for once. And that way, it could become a bit harder, could cloak themselves. I mean, slight options then again for other squads. It could be different things for Russian infantry, pilfered Panzerfaust from the fascists, improvised anti-tank grenades for American riflemen, bonuses for nearby, and perhaps, an improvised rank, brevet rank lieutenant that allows them to boost other units nearby. I mean, that way, they could, have a bit more flair and a few more choices to the different armies through, making these squads a bit more further flexible by allowing players then to customize them in, different ways. And again, adding a bit more flavor, a bit more personality, a bit more humanity into things. And again, I know, it's a bit silly. And again, for many, this is going to be like, meh. Doesn't really matter much, and that is fair enough. But to me, I always found, squaddies and stuff like that was one of the interesting things. Again, one of the things I always, found, they really should emphasize more. Because the funny thing is, in Dawn War 2, they still had them. Yeah, in Companies 2, not at all. I mean, they're pretty much not there, and it's, I don't know, it feels strange to me. It feels strange to me. In particular, when they then proceeded to add the lieutenant and the captain, who do, have a chap that stands out notably more, and, again, have more mixed weaponry. So, in that sense, it's not like there isn't a precedent for it at all. Now, at this point, anyways. And obviously, it's not going to happen, probably, because it's going to take more work and so on there. But, one can always dream, one can dream, and hope for something more down the road, if you will. Again, I'm not expecting it to happen anytime soon. If ever and again in Companies 3 would probably, fit in better. Say North Africa, probably Italy would serve a bit better. But again, it could be something that adds a more interesting element. And again, slightly further humanizes the infantry squad. Rather than just being, some faceless goons you throw at the enemy. And would further, make unit preservation more interesting. And again, less blobbing. Because again, you'd want to further tailor them towards different roles, which would, strangely enough, not include blobbing. Funny that, eh? So those, could be some ideas, some thoughts. I mean, again, you could do for different things. Pioneers, could be sort of more set up for, assaulting positions, support, fixing things, or long-range combats on there, or anti-tank as well, and all these options there. And then you could sort of, again, if you're squad leaders, even have upgrades for veteran squad leaders, who might then, have further bonuses or start out with some more unique abilities. For example, you're playing as the Germans for the Fultz Grenadiers, veteran squad leaders for them might suddenly be a boost. And same Companies too, if they were to add it, they could even make it so the Fultz Grenadiers will require squad leader to actually reach veterancy 4 and 5. all of a sudden again things change and become more interesting. So I mean, there's really, I mean, overall two sort of overall paths that could push these squad leaders in, sort of in companies 2 and obviously in companies 3. I mean, the options are a lot more limitless, but overall, I do think if they're sort of looking at the signed document right now, saying what should we do in companies 3, I do think squad leaders should be amongst the top there, because again, squad leaders tend to be rather ignored when it comes down to it. So yeah, this was just sort of more of a side thing, again, I'll do more videos with this one is popular. I mean, I could easily, do videos and other things. I'd like to see, better house fighting, for example. I mean, houses right now just sort of function weirdly, so I mean, I could easily see myself doing a video on how to do that better, to be honest. And also no snipers. I'd really love to see no snipers in companies. They just go away with them. But of course, a lot of other men. So again, if you like this, like it, share it, send it out to everyone. Of course, let me know in the comments if you do like it, if you want me to do more topic videos like this, and what I like to see in the future of company heroes, and perhaps even some else niggas went to companies 2 to perhaps test the waters for company 3. I mean, that's also an option. So again, if you like it, do let me know. Do like it, do share it, and so on. This is Imperial Dane signing off, and thanks for listening to me going on a bit here about squad leaders, again, the unsung heroes of infantry warfare. Thanks, and see you all another time. Cheers.